Hi, I'm Lorelai. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist, and today I'm going to talk to you about getting a good night's sleep. So, I am thinking of this as getting a good night's sleep, the perspective of a dietitian. So, we will talk a little bit about food and nutrition related to getting a good night's sleep, but we all know we want to get a good night's sleep. So, let's just talk a little bit about perhaps why? Like, why is a good night's sleep important to us? Other than, it feels better if we get a good night's sleep. And there's nothing wrong with that. Inadequate sleep is actually associated with a fair number of chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, obesity, and depression. And there are some reasons why. So, first of all, when we don't get enough sleep, we can actually increase our insulin resistance. Now, I've also heard that for people who have type 2 diabetes, sometimes it can be harder to get a good night's sleep. And so it kind of ends up becoming like this snowball effect because if you're having a hard time getting a good night's sleep, then that continues to increase your insulin resistance. And insulin resistance, we know, is what happens for people who are type 2 diabetic and their cells are no longer responsive to the insulin that their body secretes when they eat. And so their cells don't get the energy. So then sometimes you're feeling more tired if you have type 2 diabetes all the time. Sometimes you don't sleep well, and then that just sort of perpetuates itself. So, for people who do have type 2 diabetes, it's actually all that much more important that we do our very, very best to get a good night's sleep because it can actually exacerbate the problem. Uh, Not getting a good night's sleep can increase blood pressure. So again, associated with things like heart disease. Another thing that I think is actually really interesting is if you are ever really, really tired, sometimes you feel like you just want to eat. And I think it's our body's natural response, like, I need energy. And so we reach for food for energy when we haven't gotten a good night's sleep. And so if we are perpetually not sleeping enough and confusing tiredness for hunger and overeating, it can start to lead to something like obesity. Of course, depression, it's not as surprising that sleep deprivation might contribute to that because lack of sleep is going to affect our mood. It's going to affect our energy. And again, over time, it can just sort of perpetuate that cycle. So these are some of the reasons why we want to get a good night's sleep to avoid all of the negative side effects of not doing so. How much sleep do we need? And of course, everyone doesn't need the exact same amount of sleep, but really we need to get at least 7 hours of sleep. The goal would be to get somewhere between 7 and 9 hours. For some people, seven is plenty. Some people actually do need up to nine. So you may need to kind of listen to yourself a little bit. But you also want to avoid oversleeping. So if you're starting to notice you're sleeping like 10, 11, 12 hours a day, that actually can have some other side effects as well. So, aiming for that 7 to 9 really is the goal. Here's where we're getting a little bit into the nutrition. So, we always know we want to try to eat a balanced diet. And if we're eating well, we're more likely to sleep well as well. Everything kind of goes hand in hand. But some very specific nutrients to support getting a good night's sleep include melatonin. So, melatonin is actually the hormone that our body starts to generate as it gets darker. So it's sort of related to our sleep wake cycles. But there are some foods that actually contain this. So one of them is sweet cherries. And there have definitely been studies that people who drink sweet cherry juice sometimes tend to get a better night's sleep. Melatonin is also sometimes in nuts and seeds. And you're going to see some nuts and seeds coming up in a couple of these nutrients. Tryptophan. Tryptophan is an amino acid. So, amino acids are the building blocks to proteins. And I think that people always hear about the turkey on Thanksgiving. Everyone falls asleep after eating the turkey because of the tryptophan. Well, tryptophan is an amino acid. So, it's actually found in most proteins, but sometimes it's that one is more prevalent in certain foods. So, turkey is one of them. Also, things like dairy products, so yogurt, cottage cheese, milk, have a good amount of tryptophan in them. And then things like avocados, and here are some of our nuts and seeds as well. Nuts and seeds are also a good source of magnesium, which has been shown to promote sleep. And then things that are really more traditional, maybe like herbal tea, so things like a chamomile tea, or something that's not stimulating. You wouldn't want to do a caffeinated tea, but something that's not stimulating that can actually help support sleep. It's warm, it's soothing, it's relaxing. And then the final thing I just wanted to mention, because I did find this in a number of sources, is this concept of the golden milk, which is a warm milk made with turmeric and some other spices. I believe probably the milk, because it does have the tryptophan, probably has that effect. It's a warm milk, that's sort of the classic. But these spices are sort of warming spices. They're health promoting spices, turmeric, ginger. Sometimes there's a little bit of honey. But I would say if you are trying to eat something as like a snack before going to bed, I would not choose like a sugary or salty or high starch carbohydrate, but maybe look for something that's got a little protein, a little healthy fat in it, and then perhaps something that contains one of these additional nutrients just to help you sleep and support the idea of a good night's sleep. And then probably the most important thing is just what we kind of call sleep hygiene, which is this idea of like ways in which we can help promote a good night's sleep for ourselves. So the first one would be dimming the lights. So you want to think about, before you go to bed, creating in your own atmosphere a darker space. We do respond to dark and light, and if a lot of bright lights are on, we're more stimulated, we're more awake. If we can start to dim the lights late at night, it tends to calm us down and help us prepare for sleep. Avoiding screens, really for the same reason, the glare of the screen, they're very stimulating. So whether it's your phone or a tablet or even having the television on late at night, it sometimes can be very stimulating and keep us from wanting to fall asleep. If you can set up your bedroom so that the only thing you do in there is sleep, it actually will, when you go to bed, cause that response. Like I go to bed, when I go into my bedroom, I sleep. And so your body will react to going into your bedroom in the sense that it will want to sleep. Whereas if you use your bedroom for doing work, for watching TV, for a lot of other things, there you will not necessarily have that automatic response to walking into your bedroom and laying in your bed. You may start thinking about the other things that you do there, or it's sort of that natural response is built up. And then sticking to a sleep schedule. So this can be challenging, I know, if you have a variable work schedule, but really it's the same idea as having your bedroom for sleep only. When there's certain, you go to a certain place, your response is to sleep. It's the same thing when a certain time of day comes up, your body's response is to go to sleep. So if you can have a sleep schedule, I go to bed around this time, I wake up around this time, your body will start to get really used to it, and it will be much easier for you to fall asleep if you're falling asleep at the same time and trying to get up around the same time every day. Then some other things that you can try if you're starting to go into that sleep mode, but you're not quite relaxed, things like deep breathing and some light stretching. These might be things that will also allow your body to help your body to relax and kind of let go and fall asleep easily. So another couple of things I wanted to mention, nutritionally speaking, is that ideally you don't really want to be eating right before bed. If you do eat before bed, it ought to be small. And I did talk about some of the foods that can maybe support sleep at that time. But our bodies, when we eat food, our bodies need to digest food. And although we are going to be digesting food throughout the night, it's more, we don't want like that early digestion because it's a little more work, it's a little more distracting. Like if we actually have food in our stomach, it's a little more distracting and it's a little harder to sleep. And then I know some people, if they wake up in the middle of the night, they'll get up and they'll get themselves a snack. And ideally, that also isn't what we want to do. Like that will also wake you up. Plus, on the flip side of that, really, while we're sleeping, it's a great time for our body to be fasting. We're resting, we're recuperating, we're restoring. We don't want to shift our body into digestion mode. That will raise insulin levels and things like that. We actually want to keep ourselves in that really quiet, long period of fasting. So fasting for most of us overnight could be somewhere between 8 and 12 hours. I know some people will fast for longer, but it's not essential that you do like this 16-hour intermittent fasting window kind of thing. But I do think that having that extended period of time overnight where you're sleeping, you're letting your body rest and you're not interrupting it with any food or food at all. If you need to get up and get water, that's fine, but you're not interrupting with anything to eat. When it does come to beverages, of course, for those of you who do get woken up by getting up and having to, run to the restroom, you may not want to drink water right before bed. And then the other side of that is caffeine. So caffeine is a good one to avoid prior to bedtime. Some people will say no later than noon. A lot of people do have caffeine in the afternoon, but caffeine takes a while to leave your system. So if you do have trouble sleeping, try to move caffeine to the early part of your day and try not to have it closer to your bedtime where it's more likely to stimulate you. So hopefully some of these ideas are helpful to you if you're looking to get a good night's sleep. And I hope you also see the value in doing so. It really is important to your health. Sleep really is one of those pillars of lifestyle that we think of as being so important for preventing chronic diseases and just feeling better overall. All right, take care. Thanks so much.